Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Overnight Action here at MarketStream.live. My name is Joseph Cusick with the Cusick Group, securities provided by MoneyBlock. Well, FBI Director Comey came out, found nothing. Markets are up. Been green all night. As a matter of fact, we have the global markets at their best levels that they've been in many weeks, and as a matter of fact, since the overnight action. I'm just taking a look specifically over in Asia and the Pacific region. It finished the day on a much higher note. As I highlighted, FBI Director Comey came out and said, hey, guess what? Didn't find anything, sent a note to Congress. Okay, so it looks like now the markets globally are basically anticipating a Clinton victory. We're going to watch that very closely, of course, going into the November elections tomorrow. But bottom line is that there was no discovery in the email that made a hill of beans, and it wasn't quite an event as I thought it wouldn't be. But the thing is that we see improving global sentiment. So let's take a look at that. Let's see, Japan. The Nikkei rallied about 1.6% this morning. You have 9 of the 10 sectors registering gains, with consumer discretionaries up about 2% last night, and industrials are up 1.7%. Financials also up 1.5%, and they outperformed utilities, which were up down about 0.1%. So you're seeing that the global bond markets are also reacting to the news that FBI Director Comey came out with, and all the headlines revolved around that. And you see that global yields on bonds are also to the upside. Taking a look at some names in the Nikkei and in Japan: Suzuki Motor, JGC, NTT Data, Yamaha Motor, as well as Casio Computer and Fast Retailing, Mazda Motor, all posted gains between 3% and 7.2%. I said you need to watch these exporters very closely, especially as we get closer to the results of this election. You're going to see that they're going to be on the move dependent upon who gets elected. EWJ, right now the options are pricing in this week to EWJ, which is the ETF that tracks stocks in the Nikkei, about 35 cents this week. Implied volatility is right at that mid-level, still around 22%. So we're going to watch it. The one thing about EWJ is it's 5% off its 52-week high. So some interesting strength, and seeing some of those exporters really starting to move to the upside, as well as some strength in financials. That could be a positive in Japan, and we're going to see if that's going to flow over here in the United States. Taking a look at Hong Kong's Hang Seng, it added about 0.7% this morning, or over the overnight action. Energy and gaming stocks really were to the upside. China Energy, China Petrol and Chemical, and CNOOC gained all between about 1.2% and 3.9%. You also saw Sands China and Galaxy Entertainment. They had a pretty respective gain there of about 3.2% and 2.3% respectively. Now, we do see that there's some property names that continue to struggle in Hong Kong. We noted this a couple weeks ago when there was a feeling or a sentiment going through the Hang Seng and Hong Kong markets, specifically the property markets, that there is going to be some potential price hikes that are going to be coming up in the residential area. We see that property names have basically, because of the duties that are going to be brought upon by the Chinese government, it could increase to up towards of 15%. That's going to basically just really make these property names struggle. SHK Properties, New World Development, as well as Sino Land lost between 7.7% and 10%. So let's see if those duties are actually going to increase. The Chinese government going to pull the trigger on that. EWH is the ETF you want to watch for Hong Kong stocks. Right now, pricing in the potential to move this week around 74 cents. So very interesting move there. IV's right at the mid-range as well. So implied volatility, there is expectation of potential movement. Let's see if they finish the day here in the U.S. markets, EWH to the upside. Take a look at the Shanghai Composite in China. Ticked up about 0.3%. You had energy names and chemical names, as well as some department stores that really advanced. You have Quanlong Energy, you have Nenning Department Store, you have Yunnan Coal and Energy, all advancing between 4.3% and 5%. So some interesting moves in energy space as well as some consumer discretionaries in China. Asher's the ETF that you want to watch. They track the top 300 stocks in the Shanghai Index. Right now, pricing in the potential to move about 53 cents in Asher. IV's in the lower end of the range, so not a huge expectation of big violent moves. Finally, taking a look at India. India gained about 0.7%. Lupin spiked about 6.9% after receiving regulatory clearance here in the United States. You're also seeing that financials had a strong showing with ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, HDFC, all gaining between, I'm looking at it right now, 0.5% and 3.4% overnight. So you have financials moving to the upside. EPI is the ETF that you could track and trade here in the United States. Pricing in the potential to move about 43 cents this week, and the IV is in the upper end of the range. So there is a heightened expectation of potential moves. Let's see if that volatility comes out now that we have some more transparency in the U.S. markets, and specifically in the U.S. Election situation with the headlines about Clinton now being removed, at least to this point. Taking a look at the European markets, well, trading again has been solid there. Rallies started early, and you continue to see that. As a matter of fact, in the currency markets, you're seeing that the euro is lower by about 0.7% against the US dollar, and the pound has given up about 0.8% against the greenback. So some movement in the currency markets, strength in the dollar, weakness in other currencies. The markets are on the move. The German DAX is climbing about 1.6% this morning. You see that the biggest mover is Deutsche Bank. The stock has spiked about 3.8%, and you also have Deutsche Börse as well as Commerzbank having respective gains as well, 3.4% and 2.9%. So you see some big moves there, especially in the financials in Germany. They've been beat up, a lot of uncertainty there. It seems like they're picking up. That's positive for the market. Exporters like Daimler Chrysler and BMW, both up near basically about 2.2%. And Volkswagen is down about 0.1%. But you see that the car manufacturers and primarily exporters here to the United States, they're moving. EWG pricing in the potential to move this week about 72 cents. That's the ETF that tracks German stocks. The implied volatility is still high. Let's see if some of that vol comes out again. Now that we have a little bit more transparency, not only in what's coming on right now in the U.S. elections, but we're also seeing that the general economic climate is more positive across the board. UK's FTSE is up about 1.5%, with financials and miners in London really leading the way. Glencore, BGP Billiton, Rio Tinto, HSBC, Old Mutual, Prudential, as well as Standard & Chartered are up between 2% and 5.1%. Now, home builders are lagging, basically because you're starting to see an increase in prices. We mentioned this a couple weeks ago. We wanted to keep an eye on this. Now, the continuation of the increase in home prices, they don't anticipate that, but there was a big spike in home prices. So you see Permisson and Tyler Wimpey, love that name, down respectively about 0.5% to 0.1%. EWU will track the UK FTSE stocks. Pricing in the potential to move EWU around 40 cents this week. Vol is on the lower end, so not a heightened expectation of violent moves. In France, the CAC is trading up about 1.7% right now, and it has broad-based strength. Financials like AXA, BNP Paribas, Société Générale, Crédit Agricole, all up between 2.1% and 3%. On the downside, you have some environmental names like Veolia, shedding about 0.2%, but not a lot of weakness in France. EWQ, we'll watch that here in the States during trading hours. Pricing in the potential to move about 95 cents. Has a decent IV. The implied volatility is still heightened. We want to watch that one. And then finally taking a look at Italy. The MIB outperformed again, and it was the biggest outperforming market in Europe, up 2.2%. Ferrari, it spiked about 5.3% after beating estimates. And financials like Unicredit and Spalola and Banco Pop Emilia Parmigiana, I can't even say that, are all up between 2.4% and 13.7%. So you have financials as well as some luxury names up on the to the upside, really drawing up the Italian markets. So a lot of positive vibe going on in the overnight action, both in Asia and Europe. We're going to see if the volatility picks up towards the end of the day, midday. for some of the European stocks as we get more headlines, more indications of what's going on with the elections here. That's what everyone's going to be focusing on in the next 24 hours, and we'll talk about that. We have the open coming up at 9:30 Eastern time. We're going to be talking about some names that are going to be trading during the day. Specifically, we're going to look at some names that are going to have earnings. And we'll also talk a little bit about some names that you should be paying attention to, whether Clinton or Trump gets in office. So join us at 9:30 Eastern time. We'll also be talking about those names at midday at 1:30 Eastern time. So join us, all right, here on MarketStream.live. Have a great rest of the trading day, and we'll see you at 9:30 Eastern time. Take care, everybody.